been pushing the story that yes, they are in fact putting litter boxes in classrooms. And when asked about this, he refuses to back down and he says, no, you have to prove it's not true. I don't have to prove it's true. You have to prove that they're not doing it. I mean, very, very forceful shifting of the burden of proof here.
At a recent event about children using litter boxes in schools. There's no
Well, that's not what I said.
Okay, well then tell me what you
Right.
said. I heard the audio.
So what? Yeah. So what I was talking about is all the craziness going on in our schools, and this is just one of them. And I had a parent and a student in that audience who came up to me and told me all about it. I've had that all across the state. So I'm only articulating what I heard from Granite Staters.
Now, he claims he's heard from parents and students that this is true. It's been refuted, but I'm saying it's believable, and I'm comfortable saying it's true because it's probably going to be true very soon. And by the time anybody gets around to debunking it, it's going to be true. This was the same thing we experienced with the Great Reset. Oh, it's a conspiracy theory. There's no Great Reset. The Great Conjunction arrives, Saturn, Jupiter, winter solstice, 12, 21, 2020, boom. Welcome to the Great Reset. They were waiting for Saturn and Jupiter to conjunct with the winter solstice to hit the reset button. But until that moment, it was a coincidence. Now it's like, yeah, enjoy the Great Reset. You will own nothing, be happy, eat bugs. 80% of you won't have to work, which I don't know what that means. Do the 80% get to eat bugs? Is that what we're left with? I mean, it sounds utopian. And anytime I hear utopian, I just think, okay, cannibalism. Maybe not literal, but this is why Jeffrey Dahmer's #2 on Netflix. It's not because there's a huge demand for necrophilia and cannibalism. It's because they're getting the public acclimated to accepting the ideas of a zero-sum game. One man's gain, another man's loss. You're going to eat, someone else must be eaten. This is just suggesting here, I think they want us to think in terms of it being a closed system, which is what communism is. The technocrats are building a closed system for us. Just in, North Korea launched suspected ballistic missile. PM's Office of Japan issues emergency alert. New excuses for lockdowns. Ducking cover. Now, who didn't see this coming? Greta Thunberg. It's time to overthrow the West's oppressive and racist capitalist system. And if you've been following what I've been putting out on the Metascript.cc, it has all been about how the West is a burning house, and all of the messaging and all of the movies saying the West needs to be burned. The burning down of the house is significant. It has to do with the burning of the astrological house as we enter the new age. And I've remarked, that's why I put Greta on my short list of potential antichrists. I put her on that list because she perfectly encapsulates this aeon of Horus ideal. Horus represents the youth rebellion, overthrowing the traditions of the past that have made the world unsafe, climate change, guns, capitalism. George Floyd died from climate change. Kanye's getting flack for saying, oh no, he was killed by fentanyl. And they're like, no, you can't say that. You're going to get sued. And then they said, no, he was killed by the cops' knee on his neck. Police oppression killed him. Racism killed him. I'm saying, no, he was killed by climate change. That's why he couldn't breathe. And I say this because that's ultimately what they're getting at. They're saying that our economic political system is inherently oppressive against the poor, inherently destructive against the environment, and it must go. They're giving people multiple reasons to get rid of this, quote, oppressive and racist capital system. Again, this is Greta Thunberg recognizing that, hey, all along, I was marching behind a stalking horse for communism. That's pretty much it. I remember calling her a watermelon Marxist, day one. Oh yeah, she may be green on the outside, but wait till you see what's on the inside. All red. The activist claims that the world's current, quote, normal, dictated by the people in power, has caused the climate breakdown. Tomanoid 2 says Soylent Green and Ray Liotta movies No Escape, Escape from Absalom, both set in 2022 with cannibals. Yes. Soylent Green set in 2022. Soylent Green came out in 1973. 1973 figures prominently in 2022. That's the year of the first Roe v. Wade leak. That's the year of Watergate, which correlates to the January 6th committee. 73 was the year that Elvis was beamed by satellite to 1.2 billion people. And I think he reached that level this year with that Elvis movie. Lots of 1973 happening this year. And again, cannibalism right now. Alu Goering says Snowpiercer. Yeah, a Snowpiercer, interestingly enough, is about cannibalism, a closed system. They're all trapped in a train going around a frozen world, which symbolizes our system and it being a quote closed system, where the people at the very back are being eaten by the people in the front. But a couple of things about that movie, Snowpiercer. I think the main thing about it is it's taken to be a sequel to Charlie on the Chocolate Factory. I brought up Willy Wonka, but yeah, Snowpiercer is Charlie's train when he grows up. I mean, it's all to me almost plagiarism. I mean, they pretty much stole the story. It's definitely overlaid. Let's see here, going through your comments. Echo Charlie says Utopia becomes a failed economic system. Well, right now we have been sold on Mars utopianism, and that's what I think this age of Mars or Aeon of Mars / Horus is actually about. They get us to accept, hey, the perfect way of living is the one we built in our models, like the one on Mars that we're going to have. No MAGA hats, no Qs, no question marks, no individual property rights. All the things that make this world bad, we're not taking with us to Mars. They go to Mars, they build the perfect society. And once they get you to accept that this is perfect, it's sustainable, it's this perfect vegan commune, separate from anything that made the world what it is today. Once they build that in your minds as acceptable, and they've already brought Bezos, Jeff Bezos / Nimrod out to communicate this. He said, we have a choice here. If you want freedom and liberty, you got to go to space because here on Earth, it's going to become a civilization of stasis. They have talked about this, a civilization of stasis. They want to lock this down. But again, it's because they want us to adopt on Earth the way we're going to live on Mars. It's not about sending you to Mars. It's about making Earth Mars. And Mars just happens to be a gulag system. Bunch of communes. It's space communism. It really is. And this is reflected in the rhetoric with Putin versus the quote Antichrist West. It is the West that must be stopped at the Kármán line. Manifest destiny. It can't go on. It can't go into space because if we let Bezos go into space, he's going to bring down trillions of dollars in wealth and it will disrupt the world systems. It'll make life less sustainable here on Earth. We'll have mega yachts everywhere and the communists won't be able to compete. And of course, it'll destroy the environment. This is the big schism here. We can't let the West win because they will destroy the world if they're allowed to go into space with this mentality, this cowboy mentality. And this was pretty evident in the series Mars on Netflix, where you had two groups going to Mars. One was a group of scientists led by women, and the other was a group of oil drillers from Texas that went to Mars. The women discover life, but the men with their oil rigs drilling holes into Mars, raping Mars, literally cause an earthquake and kill everybody. What's the lesson there? I mean, it's pretty obvious. And that's why Jeff Bezos wore a cowboy hat when he went to space. He went to space on the anniversary of Apollo 11, launched at 9:11 a.m. This is in 2021. And the cowboy hat, I think, symbolizes that in the West, the richest man in the world, he sees space as a new frontier, the final frontier. This is why they brought William Shatner up into space, Captain Kirk, space, the final frontier. And now we have this conflict of visions between the West and the space commies. Space cowboys versus space commies. That's the next thing. And I wouldn't be surprised if something happens today because it's 11/3. Doblue.com says, Happy Godzilla Day to all who celebrate. Let's go through some more things. We talked about the event at the Pelosi's and what a setup that was. That was a hammer attack on free speech itself. Very successful, I think. A lot of people retracted. Ban hammered down on free speech. Here's something to look forward to. Here's an actual tweet from Elon Musk. Twitter will not allow anyone who is deplatformed for violating Twitter rules back on the platform until we have a clear process for doing so, which will take a few more weeks. That's ominous right there. Twitter's Content Moderation Council will include representatives with widely divergent views, which will certainly include civil rights groups, community and groups who face hate-fueled violence, meaning he's going to get representatives from every group of snowflakes. So somebody somewhere will be offended by whatever you say. Talk to civil leaders, he says. Jay Greenblatt, ADL. No more AOK signs, no more bowl cuts. They put those in as hate crimes. Yeah, if you have a bowl cut, according to the ADL, you are basically wearing a swastika on your head, like it's a hate symbol. We're talking about how Twitter will continue to combat hate and harassment and enforce election integrity policies. That's Elon Musk directly tweeting this. There's your devil's champion antichrist letting you know that you're going to get banned because you're going to offend somebody and you're not going to get back on. Ban evasion. Like, I am thinking that maybe I'm going to have to spend $8 a month for a blue check because I think they're going to be less likely to kick you off if you're a paying customer. Another headline, Greta Thunberg used to say this is from Michael Schellenberger, this is his tweet on it. Greta used to say her goal was to protect the planet from climate change, but now she admits it's, quote, to overthrow the whole capitalist system, which is responsible for, quote, imperialism, oppression, genocide, oppressive extractionism. Masks are off now. If you're listening to Infinite Plane Radio in March of 2020, you would have heard me say COVID-19 is just going to fast track 2030 and COVID is doing Greta's work. Elon Musk, here's the number, 113.3 million followers. His location has been moved to hell in response to this, and he's just clowning those of us in the know. He's like, yes, I'm the Antichrist, or one of them, right here in the open, and nobody believes you. Tomanoid says, former Pakistan PM assassination attempt failed. He claims election tampering conspiracy with USA collusion and is on the march. Yeah, that's a new trend as well. The election rigging contests are now being accused of being more rigged by the other guys. Like, how do they draw a line? Like, what level of rigging is fair in these rigged election rigging contests? Echo Charlie says, but true Marxism has never been tried. You know, they had that excuse until 2020, but any communist who says, oh, we've never implemented it, Obama's like, well, we're the ones we've been waiting for. Everyone who did it before us, yeah, they were wrong. No, they did have their chance. It's called Chazistan. CHOP. Chazistan out there in Seattle.
To see what it could be. It said this is the court of the 35th degree. I was taken back a little suddenly as I looked askance at this door in front of me.
1:11, probably 9:11 somewhere. November the 10th, 2022, Infinite Plane Radio. Thank you for joining. Sent out notifications, blasted where I could. We had a slight disruption for the last 5 days. Your IPS services were disrupted as a result of deplatforming by Spotify. And I was looking them up, trying to contact their legal team. And it turns out that Spotify is headquartered in that giant needle, the giant, what is it, the One World Trade Tower. Big VAX pointing at the sky. And from one angle, it actually looks like a Klan hood if you've looked at the architecture of it. Anyway, not as impressive as the Twins, but we all know what it really stands for. This 1,776-foot tower, the Tower of Babel. And of course, these controlled platforms aren't going to want me in their very headquarters, so they purged us. No big deal, we've reconstituted. I've described this channel as a hydra with 80 neck stumps and 20 heads, but more and more the number of heads to stumps, it's moving in our favor, and we have a lot of new developments. In fact, I started a new video blog series called Tim Osman Uncensored, which is ironically censored, but it's going to be a 10-minute video blog I'm doing daily at Infinite Plane Society. That's my YouTube handle. And that's going to be our permanent toehold on the world stage. That will be a barometer. We'll be able to determine how many people are actually listening. We won't have our numbers scattered. I'm going to keep it safe, no calls, no openings for any kind of infiltration, just simple 10 minutes talking about the weather every day. And I'll obviously be very careful about what I upload. The purpose is we need a rallying point. They've managed to break the continuity of the think tank repeatedly. And this is how we grow, by leaps and bounds instead of reconstituting one person at a time. If you're looking at the screen, I have some scientific evidence here that history repeats. I believe it was Mark Twain said history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And I've stood by that. There's so many examples of history of both repeating, but it's close to a rhyme, like similar themes that are repeating. It's not perfect, but here we have actual scientific evidence that history is actually repeating. And this comes from NASA. And they have two different images of the blue marble, one from 2002 and one from 2007. Now these two images are 5 years apart. However, they have the exact same clouds. That could only mean one thing. I mean, these are patterns that are happening from above. Unless you want to be a science denier and claim that these images have been fabricated, you're left with, yeah, history is repeating. I mean, this is your evidence if you're a believer in the blue marble. Like, you deal with it. You have to deal with this and the wooden moon rocks, not our problem, not our contradiction. All right, let me see who is in the chat. If you haven't joined the Infinite Plane Radio 24/7 multi-chat, omni-chat think tank, go to ips.monster and join. We have more than 200 people there. At any given moment, you have a couple dozen in there hanging out. You can go into the chat. We have these long talks. And I bring in a bot and I record the conversations so they can be transcribed and possibly broadcast later. Now we are working towards getting onto a routine schedule. All right, I'm going to catch up on some comments. It's been a moment. Here earlier this morning, the Juice had said, you know the thing you always say about Pelosi not being a drunk? What about the alcohol references she makes when she talks? If you listen to any statement, she frequently makes references to drinking. She sounds drunk all the time because of her dentures, but I disagree with you. I think she's a drunkard, but I respect your opinion. Right. Well, there's been this long-going joke. You know, she's got the gavel and she's hammered, and then her husband gets hammered, DUI, and then the attack. And that whole story is obviously phony. And it was used to bash the right, making them look, well, uncouth. I mean, how mean can you be to mock somebody who's being attacked? These are victims of a violent crime. And they were given plenty of reason to think it was a hoax or faked or staged or erroneously reported some kind of lover spat. They were given the stories, rather the talking points they needed to construct these narratives that they would later be chastised and attacked for. We're witnessing it now. It looks terrible. However, my position is based on evidence. And looking at the story, there's too much there to think it's real. Miles Mathis did a really good piece on it as well. And he dug into the background of the characters involved. And there's quite a lot there that casts doubt onto whether or not anything actually happened. But this is a story. Not a coincidence that the guy's name is De Pepe, like Pepe the Frog. And then what's more, just today, it came out, I believe it was today or yesterday, Stuart Rhodes, the founder of the Oath Keepers, had said on some voicemail that they have. They haven't, no, it wasn't a voicemail. It was a recording on 1/6 where he's asking, "Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy?" The leader of the Oath Keepers may have doomed himself. He definitely was asking for Nancy that day, as many others were. In fact, if you recall, Mike Pence was saying they were chanting, "Where's Nancy?" Now, Trump calls her an animal because she, impeached him or something. But you can see how the story is not new. The guy in the house chanting, "Where's Nancy?" is meant to tie into 1/6. And it makes everyone look bad. Nancy Pelosi slams Elon Musk over, quote, destructive tweet. Should say Nancy Pelosi hammers Musk. I mean, I think they engage in a lot of hyperbole, hyperbolic language. Like, these aren't attacks. A tweet is not an attack. They just use like it's war. Everything is war. Everything's an attack. Everything's destructive. Anyway, of course, this is all engineered to make Musk look bad, to make social media look like it needs to be regulated. All right, let me go ahead and go through a few of the top things that I had on my list here. This is Joe Biden saying Elon Musk is worth being looked at as a national security threat. A reporter calls him out asking how, because they haven't banned question marks yet. A clueless Joe panics and mumbles, "There's a lot of ways." Again, Musk being set up as some kind of national security threat. To me, it's all obvious controlled opposition. Is anyone else here thinking that Musk is some kind of, I don't know, some kind of guy challenging the system in a Kanye kind of way? I don't think so. I don't buy it. Now, there's a really interesting image someone just posted in chat. Truman B, I appreciate this. Accused Pelosi attacker De Pepe spread QAnon far-right bigoted conspiracies. Yeah, his website had Friends, F-R-E-N-S, in the title, which is a reference to the frog. And I'm saying here, this is a clear giveaway. Just the name alone tells you it was a hoax. And the faces, the guy even looks like Pepe the Frog. I've seen some mashups. Crisis actor. And look, I wouldn't be mocking an attack on somebody, especially if I thought it was real. That's beyond the pale. I don't go there. Republicans do, though. Absolutely. All right, let's continue through the list of important things. Now, this was posted on George News, and I put out a press release this morning. I don't want to get into it here unless there's a huge demand for it. It's kind of boring, but essentially, I am suing YouTube again, and I'm suing them for identity theft. Simultaneously, I have reported them to the FBI for identity theft. And I put this into a press release and I notified them so they know I'm suing them. But the purpose of the lawsuit is to instigate a grand jury indictment against my cyber stalker, who's the co-defendant in the suit against YouTube. Anyway, the co-defendant I speak of is George News, and I'm following him closely these days because he's the #1 QAnon influencer on Telegram. He's known to everyone. CodeMonkeyZ. He trades domains with Watkins and his dad. Jim Watkins and George know each other. This is, again, it's a whole side story, but I put together a press release because I think we're reaching the point where this information is going to get out. And the more succinct I can state it, if I can put it all on one page, the more likely it will be understood for what it actually means. Now, the person George News is one of these election denialist types. And look, let's just stop calling them election denialists or election deniers. They're not calling these elections fake in that sense. They're not denying the elections. It's more like weaponized sore loserism. Weaponized sore loserism. It's a form of crisis acting. The right does all kinds of crisis acting these days, like swatting. They pretend like they're getting swatted, and here they pretend like their election's being stolen. Well, the election rigging contest has been unfairly biased in favor of one of the cheaters. But listen to this. George News posted this, or rather, this was an anecdote he shared. Quote, true story from Toria Brooke. Now, I don't know who Toria is, but she's got a pink check by her name, so she's legit. Quote, as multiple social media platforms and internet has been terrible, I prayed to God to intervene in the digital warfare. Made him a promise I would read my Bible and make it a priority. And what happened? Within minutes, all of the posts about election fraud that wouldn't post went right through. There you have it. The real Toria Brooke prayed for God to intervene in the digital warfare. And this is what QAnon, the digital warriors, are doing. They're becoming spiritual warriors. And what George News added to her comment was, put him first and everything else will fall into place. Now, is that even true? It didn't look like the red wave I was hearing about. But we will talk about the meaning of the red wave and how that was so hyped up and it coincided with the blood moon, among other things. But we're still waiting on the entire thing. But they certainly have made sore loserism into a way to almost force yourself into winning. It's kind of a tantrum at this point. Bull Run is here. Glad to see you still kicking it, Tim. Thanks for joining. You're going to see the numbers go up, by the way. If you use YouTube and you go to the handle Infinite Playing Society, that's a video blog. It's going to be all safe content, and we're going to use that as, again, a permanent foothold on the world stage. That is going to be a place where, these platforms are going to cancel us everywhere. But I want one place, one beacon, one permanent fixture that everyone can gravitate to, and that's going to be that particular spot. And I thought it was going to be Spotify. That's why I put so much effort into it. And if you didn't know, we had accrued more than 4,000 subscribers before we were deplatformed. We were kind of getting underneath the radar of the censors, but I'm kind of glad that it happened. I'm glad because you want these vulnerabilities to be exposed when you're still small before you're overly reliant on your infrastructure and then someone snipes you. I didn't realize that we were that vulnerable. I mean, what if I had built an entire business and media operation on subscription revenue and then some snowflake can file a complaint and have it yanked? Well, that's the world we live in. Snowflakes have all the power. Globe Skeptic Historian says, it is now evening in my country. I will lay down and rest, but will still listen. Appreciate you. And look, the archives will be sent out via email daily. Just subscribe to the newsletter at ips.monster, even on the free newsletters. That's how I make sure everyone's on the same page. And my plan too is to take calls late into the night, and then of course my mornings will be open. Right now I have a window of opportunity. I've been doing a lot of rebuilding, and I've learned quite a few things. I've had a few new strategies to add to our overall approach. I have a commenter here about what Elon Musk's real purpose may be behind the purchasing of Twitter. We did analyze Elon Musk's costume that he wore on Halloween, the red samurai with the ram's horn, and how it ties into the tarot card of the Emperor, and how this all correlates to Mars and the Aeon of Horus that we're entering into. Very interesting when you get into it, but why would he buy Twitter? You got KK Kanye buying Parler. You have Trump buying, or he has his own Truth Social, and now Elon on Twitter. You have this trifecta of hate speech, and it's got the left in a tizzy, but this is what conspiracy charlatans suggested. I think Elon bought Twitter to kill the last real-time free speech platform. I just seen a random stripper complaining about getting suspended on Twitter. I get suspended for a controversial opinion about King Charles II looking like Charlie Murphy. And a day later, a stripper gets banned for what never got her banned before. I see it seems like Elon's imploding the platform intentionally, sort of like how YouTube got rid of the dislike button. Twitter may not be too free for the tyranny they have in mind for the future. World War III and Twitter are incompatible. I agree 100%. In my view, World War III kicked off on 3/11/2020. And what World War III was, it was a declaration of war by the elite against the masses, against rather the individuals within the mass. The people who are assimilated into the masses, the NPCs, the ones following the program, they're not a threat. Yeah, they're an extension of the elite. Every mask Karen, every social distance enforcer walking around, every vax junkie is part of the elite. And the war is against those who are not, the Neos in the Matrix. The and it's not even about that particular issue. There are so many issues where you can tell that it's about the control of ideas. It's not about viruses, it's about ideas, mind viruses. World War III is about the infodemic, not a pandemic. The infodemic is the information not controlled and filtered by elite media. And this would mean controlling artists, controlling free thinkers, controlling anything that might go viral that doesn't respect the world view that the establishment promotes as the only one. It is the one world religion. The one you see on TV, that's the worldview we're all supposed to have, and it is, in fact, the de facto religion. Going through some comments. You can tell it's real because it looks so fake. Yes, that would be Elon Musk. And I heard that there's going to be a new Iron Man movie coming out soon. And I was bringing this up for a couple of reasons. One, Tom Cruise is being pointed at as Tony Stark. And two, Elon Musk's costume was reminiscent of the Iron Man costume. And when you get into the symbolism of it, Mars is associated with iron for a number of reasons, and the ram, and the color red. And you can see how, Kabbalistically, it was a very well articulated costume. You might even say ritual garb. The ram's head cements it. No, actually, if the ram's head wasn't enough to cement this thing as ritual garb, you could also look at the fact that Musk purchased this one of a kind, unique costume at a store in Abracadabra, or called the store is called Abracadabra. Now, that is the main word of the New Age, the Age of Mars, the Thelemite cult. It's their main word. It's like Aleister Crowley said, the word of the New Age is abracadabra. Now, to me, it's mumbo jumbo. I'm not a believer in their cult, but I've studied it. And the New Age cult under Crowley had this Bible, this red book called 418. And this is because they get deep into the gematria and numerology and all that. And 418 is the numerical equivalent of that word, which means something along the lines of I create as I speak. Some New Age adage. Now, the only reason why this stuff gets brought up in this context is that the space program fills in for the old religion when it comes to defining what heaven is and essentially how we get there. These are, I call Elon Pope Musk. And, he's a composite character, Iron Man, a little bit of Willy Wonka, a lot of Werner von Braun. Werner von Braun's book, The Technical Tale, Mars, a Technical Tale, is about the Elon who's the first to colonize Mars. And that's what's happening right now, and that's what World War III is about. But it's not about taking you to Mars, some long distance trip, some luxury trip. No. The Mars is actually a blueprint for Chazistan worldwide. They're going to bring us back into the Stone Ages. They're mud flooding mines, though. I don't think they have to break anything. All right, let's see. Going through some comments. Sleepy Random says Elon will get rid of Twitter bots by charging people Doge to tweet. Look, I have no issue with bots. To be honest, the bots add quite a lot to Twitter. I have bots that help me download videos. I have bots that colorize old photos. So many different types of useful bots that Twitter would be useless without a whole lot of bots. I'm actually in favor of bots. They get an unfair rap here. I'm more looking at how they single out people like us, people like, look, our channel has been repeatedly targeted for what? We made a cartoon. We made a South Pole cartoon. It was like a 2-minute skit where Candace Owen and Kanye are signing a deal with the pillow guy, Mike Lindell, to turn his overstocked pillowcases into Klan hoods for Kanye to sell with his clothing line. Anyway, that video was pulled. And I'm like, I can go on Twitter and I can watch people getting shot. Like you can watch anything. There's no censorship on Twitter, literally none. Like you want to see what real death looks like, because look, you want to say that people calling school shootings fake are reality denialists and they're just like they can't face reality. No, I watch people die all the time on Twitter. Whether you want to or not, if you follow the news feeds, you will. And you'll notice that the Democrats don't care about handgun deaths in inner cities one bit. No, they only care about assault rifle 15 because they know they can shake down Armalite for $73 million. Dollars. Now, not to get off topic here, but I'm just saying. It seems to me that they're more concerned with censoring ideas that are counter establishment media than actual psychopathy, actual carnage, actual obscenity. They've made it they've made it pretty much worse. Like I've been X-rated, you know that? I've been X-rated. I'm fully clothed. I've been X-rated on DLive. I'm like, why? Now I'm going to be branded an X-rated channel. I almost want to sue them over that kind of branding. They said because you talked about politics. It's like, no, I don't talk about politics. I talk about the actors. You know what they used to say? Politics is show business for less than attractive people. And you know what? We're so objective, we don't take sides that I don't even think what we do falls into the purview of politics. And yet we are censored, defunded. Meanwhile, you have gamers playing Grand Theft Auto 24/7, raking in the lemons. I'm like, wait a minute here. You said no political speech. Well, Grand Theft Auto is the Democrat Party platform enacted. And they get a pass. And a literalist says, how useful are Russian bots? Well, the only bots that I really see are the hobots, exactly. We get these sex bots that are selling dating apps, which is very irresponsible in the age of monkeypox. And then I get flagged for running a spam channel. But look, we have workarounds. We figured out how to get around this system, which is really biased against discourse like what we have. Open sourced intel, random conversation. We have a good way to work around it, and it's going to revolve around, again, Tim Osmond Uncensored daily video blog. Joined here by X322. Thanks for joining. If you follow on any of our platforms, you've seen a lot of the art and the design. And if you look on the screen at the top right, there is an image of a penguin with a nuke going off on top of his head. And it says IPS Think Tank, designed by X322. Thanks for joining. And if you go to, I believe if you go to infiniteplane.media and click shop, I've made this available as a print on a flag. Just a heads up, and I'll put a link below if anyone's interested. Again, a lot of our designs are designed by listeners. There's quite a lot that goes into this channel. That's why I don't like the fact that they target us for censorship. It's not just me talking. It's there's the interaction with a large group of independent thinkers. Like we don't all agree. We don't fight, but we discuss our disagreements all day. I wouldn't even say we debate. Like I have no intention of changing the minds that are trying to change my minds. We're just constantly talking. Again, we're up at 3 a.m. debating whether or not embalmers would be in the know about any anomalies in the blood. And my argument was no, of course not. Because if there's any anomalies, they're going to go through the chop shop first. As in, unexpected deaths get autopsied. There's going to be a severing of every single artery in that context. Any anomalies will be found there at the medical examiners long before it goes to some privately run funeral home where some minimum wage embalmer is going to have some insight that everyone else missed. No, that's just fake. And I was making some calls today, and I may actually visit with some local embalmers and do an interview if there's an interest in this topic. Stu Peters is the name of the individual with, he's got a news channel, and he's releasing a documentary called Suddenly Dead. And I think it's mostly based on this notion that I'm talking about. And I'm thinking maybe I ought to go, offer some counterpoints to it. And my main criticism of his work, which hasn't been released yet, is that on the intro, he has John Benet Ramsey having this breakdown, looking like a Furby with one of her eyes flipping, like a malfunctioning Furby. I mean, Kate Perry, of course, grown up John Benet Ramsey. Kate Perry's Furby eye thing apparently was intentional. It's part of her broken robot dance. And she invited people she called, quote, spaces fakers to come watch her do it live in Vegas. He put that on the intro of his documentary. I'm like, look, that's not even evidence in favor of what you're promoting in your video here. She's trolling you guys. I do thank her though for spaces fakers. I like that better than flat earthers because I cannot assert anything I can't prove as a belief. I can conjecture, I can dispute the other side, but there's a stronger argument just because it's easier to make this argument because none of us have access to spacecraft or the ability to travel deep, deep, deep south. There's a really strong argument that space, the concept of outer space as it's been televised is fake. That when we look up, are we looking out across a flat solar system or are we looking at something else? And I'm saying that whatever we're looking at, none of us here are denying it. Like, I'm not a reality denialist. I'm just saying the explanations we've been given are mostly cartoon based, mostly rather, yeah, we live in a Disney universe. And I'm not just talking about Pluto the dog on the face of Pluto. And Pluto the dog was created in 1930, the same year Pluto was discovered. And Pluto would be the outlier, by the way. Yeah, we have a flat solar system. However, Pluto's like 17 degrees below the plane. That's why he's Lord of the Underworld. Going through some comments. Kimmy Spreadborough says the numbers don't add up. Yeah, it's just been a nonstop shell game. And look, I'm very interested in Stu Peters' documentary. I'm very interested in everyone being heard. And the facts can sort themselves out. Publish it all, let facts sort them out. Or, you know what I mean? Like objective reality. But no, we're not allowed to use objective reality as a metric. If the answers aren't deemed correct, they're burned. They're deleted. Joined here by Evolvement. Look, a lot of people are posting emojis. It's a penguin with fire. And, we all know what that means. It's just a way of saying hello. I agree vehemently. Whatever your meaning of it, it's not a bad thing. But for people who are new here, they're going to be like, what's with these pyromaniac penguins? And I want to briefly explain. The penguin is a symbol for a few reasons of not just the fringe, the designated fringe, but also, I would say, of those of us who are in a concerted effort to build something separate from the establishment accepted worldview. What I'm talking about is the idea of we're not really reality denialists in any way. We're just saying if we look at the objective facts and we subtract what can't be verified, we're left with a different picture. And like if enough of us on this quote fringe, or what they call borderline, put our information together, we do arrive at something pretty cohesive. And it's very reminiscent, though, of the idea of how penguins maintain warmth out in the Antarctic, where they gather in a circle and they breathe inward. And this heated air, as they rotate around, pointing their beaks inward, goes up to like 98 degrees or something. And it's like a campfire. And I'm just thinking that's the meaning of this flame, the fire. It's the idea of the darkness symbolizing ignorance. And the world of acceptable ideas is all they want. Everything else gets shoved into the darkness. They want people ignorant about the wrong answers. And I'm like, no, we're out here on the fringe. We're in Antarctica. And we're not going to remain in the dark here. We will conspire, which really, what does conspire mean? Breathe together. Together breathe. And this conspiring is what is keeping this light, which I think is the thing they're trying to snuff. We're in an age of endarkenment where, yeah, we have more information. We seem to be more informed than ever. But I think there's been an inversion in our collective epistemology, and it's the over-reliance on the screened worldview. And I think all of this, of course, is part of what this new age is about. It's about a one world religion that even the atheists fall lockstep into this box with everybody else. Every atheist believes in outer space. And my contention is that outer space, the way they described it, is a concept to replace the archaic ideas of heaven. Heaven is somewhere you're never going to go in your real life, but it's where they offer you an ideal. Like in heaven, there's obviously going to be no MAGA hats, no AR-15s. There's going to be no need for social media and for all that vanity. Well, what do you think Mars is going to be? The moon, ascetic. That's what. It's not going to be based on a political and economic system that that destroyed the earth. They're not taking capitalism to space. They build the utopia in your mind. This is the way it ought to be. And of course, the priesthood that offers the way to heaven are always standing around obelisks. You notice that? Today's obelisks are the ones that fly. Same symbol. And they're all telling you the same thing. Bezos. Oh, we need a civilization of stasis. Earth can't survive. We got to freeze the way we live here. It's about regulating human behavior, as religions always have. And if we continue on this path, of course, Noah's flood has been promised. They've already said, yes, Noah's going to flood. Well, not Noah's going to flood. Noah's warning us of the flood. That's going to come from not God, but globe. Now, this Noah today is not warned by an angel, but by a satellite. Although it's still identified by the symbol of the dove, referring to the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. Noah's modern flood myth. 737 says a group of penguins in the water is called a raft, but on the land they're called a waddle. Oh yes, well, we are aiming for critical raft, and that's the reason for that YouTube channel I put up there. It's not a live streaming channel, like I said, it's just a video blog channel. We will get every former subscriber to Infinite Plane Society on that particular raft. And once we get 10,000, it'll be very easy to get our live streams back up to where we have the lively chat and back-to-back phone calls. And we'll be there before the end of this month. You know, I have some set goals. I'm not announcing them yet, but probably within the next couple of days, when we are fully back on the regular schedule, I'll be explaining what the objective is. But I think we've reached a point where it's pretty obvious the other side's never going to relent, and they're going to find some other reasons. Like, this is why I'm like not going to go anti-vaxxer. I don't care what your position is, pro or anti. I'm in favor of the discourse because this is about worldview warfare. And in my view, they've created virus as a replacement for sin. And it's just about regulating people's behavior. That's it. Just like your carbon footprint. But I could say, let's not talk about that anymore. And let's not talk about Hitler anymore. Let's not talk about climate change anymore. That way we can stay on these platforms. That way we can continue to fund this operation. If that was our standard and we take certain ideas and say, okay, we can't talk about these wrong answers, we're acting just like the mainstream. We're curating reality for the people who may be listening. And we're doing it for self-preservation, which is just cowardly. But even if you go along with that, what's next? What's the next thing they're going to say that you can't say? I remember back in 2018 when they started regulating anybody questioning NASA. Any spaces faker, any flat earther, you get censored, you get cut off YouTube. And the people who were more conventional conspiracy theorists, like, oh, I'm just a regular 9/11 truther and chemtrailer, they didn't care about those flat earthers. So like, oh, screw them. And then, of course, the bar moves. And that's kind of the thing. They're going to continue to eliminate ideas. So if you give in at any point, you just lost the whole point. You lost the game. And I don't make it my point to talk about things that are out of bounds. We just talk. And it's just amazing how often what we say goes out of bounds. All right, not to get too big into politics. I don't know if Uncle Festerman is an appropriate way to describe this new politician. We were just talking about his tattoos the other day. Yeah, somebody said something about politics and show business. And I think a lot of these people do come off as inauthentic and actors. But whatever it is, it's definitely a show. It's all about visuals. It's all about looks these days. It's some kind of a freak show. It's meant to get your attention, not necessarily good looks. On the topic of penguin, somebody showed me here. What is this? Business goose. It looks like a Chinese character for penguin. Business goose. All right, let's continue. Environmentalism. is also huge, and obviously they're making it difficult to question that. So we may get past the whole vax topic. We may get past all the hate speeches. And then we start talking about the weather. The space, outer space, and now they're going to say, look, space junk, we always talk about how fake that is. Pretty soon you won't be able to. For science.com, why we should think about Earth's orbit as an ecosystem. Space environmentalism is next. And I've seen a number of headlines blaming your excessive use of dino juice, your fossil fuel consumption, for space junk staying up in space longer. Like, isn't that a good thing? Do we want it falling down on us? I still don't understand why they're constantly letting stuff fall on our heads anyway. Like, you would think that you have, two options, principally two options. It can go down or it can go up. If it goes up, what's it going to do? It's going to fall into a black hole, into a wormhole, into a star. Whatever trash you have in the ISS, that little bit of waste, I'm pretty sure the universe can absorb it. But no, they toss their trash in the oceans. In 2021, NASA dropped 2.9 tons of batteries into the ocean. And I'm just pointing this out because nobody cares about the oceans, nobody cares about the whales anymore. Now it's save outer space. Blood moon, lunar eclipse, election day conspiracy theories. Did anybody here get the idea that this was sort of nothing more than I'm not going to say coincidence, but like anybody who had some kind of grand idea about some apocalypse, I think they would have been disappointed. But the alignment, though, is very curious. I don't believe there are any coincidences. In fact, we talk about New Year's Eve and how it's all aligned precisely with the dog star. And when the dog star reaches its highest point, midnight, and then it falls. And counting down 10 to 1, watching the ball drop, is symbolic of Sirius, the dog star. That's a precise celestial alignment with a mass event celebrated by billions. And think about that. The numbers of people participating in an event precisely coordinated around the celestial alignment that most of them have no clue about because they're drunk, they're buzzed, and they think it's just a party. But it's not party. It's not just a party. It's not arbitrary at all. And that star, as most of you know, is in every single Masonic lodge. I mean, what do you think that means? My point is, 9/11 was scheduled as precisely. And, even the killing of George Floyd was scheduled that precisely. The killing of Amir Locke on 2/2/2022, the 22-year-old killed at 6:48 a.m., a mirror of 846, very precise. Precise storytelling. Again, no coincidences on the world stage. Joined by JT33, Jenna Lovecraft Reeves. Thanks for joining. Someone posted a meme here. Truman B. Again, memes are still legal. Post them while you can, because now they're saying that memes kill. Operating a submarine, operating a fake space station. There was a submarine operator who called into some show and I listened to him talking about how if you compare, actually, I could probably call him. Actually, I could call this person. I'll reach out to him, put it in my notes. He said if you compare submarines to the space station, it gives you an idea of how fake the space station is. And there were a lot of things about it, but most of it's just for show. All the wires, the laptops hanging out, they're always pretending to do stuff. You never actually see what they're doing on those computers. And why haven't they gone to the moon again? Here we are in 2022. There's no boots on the moon. It's been like 50 some years. What's with that? I was thinking, okay, well, we're giving NASA billions of dollars a year, right? We're giving them tens of millions of dollars a day, and they can't go to the moon. Now, why don't we just get a small group of people and give them technology for the 1960s? Give them a small budget. Rather take away all the anything that they could have obtained from 1972 beyond. No, strip that away, shrink their budget, and see if they can get to the moon. Because somehow they were able to do it back then. Of course, my thinking is they can't do it again because the special effects aren't there yet. The limiting factor when it comes to deep space exploration is definitely special effects. And the gullibility of the public. which I still think, look, it's at an all-time high. Yeah, sure, a lot of people figured out that the globe's probably not a big CGI ball. A lot of people figured out that the moon landings are 100% obviously a joke on humanity, fake. But there are just as many people willing to believe equally silly things. Like, for example, this is a new one to me. The QAnoners have been waiting on the edge of their seats for 5 years now for JFK to come out of hiding and to crown Trump king of the world. And then JFK Jr. comes out with Princess Diana. They've been waiting for this, and it hasn't happened yet. And then I see Trump, and I'm like, well, when's Trump going to bring out John F. Kennedy Jr. to be his running mate? Apparently, they forgot about that because now they're hoping for Kanye or Marjorie Taylor Greene. And how do you think that makes JFK Jr. feel? He's been in hiding for 30 years, ready to take his position as VP, and they hand it to Kanye or MT. I was about to talk about Hitler still being alive. All right, well, I'm going to reset the system, and if you missed any later on today, I'll send out live stream archive notifications like I always do. Interesting. Not sure what